Good morning, gladiators. It is Wednesday, November 4th. Welcome back. I hope that you got some rest yesterday, enjoyed your day off. All right, so here we go. So today we're going to be learning about the principles of the Constitution. I would like for you to watch the video first, as we always do, to get some knowledge about what the principles are all about. Okay, so then today let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the principles. This is actually a very good system that was set up by our founding fathers, and this was to prevent any branch from becoming too powerful or for government to become too powerful in itself. So let's talk a little bit about it. So there are a total of seven. Okay, the first one is the people, popular sovereignty. Then you have voting, republicanism. Sharing is federalism. Division, separation of powers. The law, limited government. Rights, individual rights. Checks and balances. So let's go over them together. Okay, so why would the framers add the principles to the Constitution? So I want you to think about that before we get into the lesson. Okay, this is something that we will be discussing today. And then number two, how are the principles of the Constitution reflected in our society? So I want you to think about why would they want to add these principles, and then for today, and two, think about why they did it. What was important? What were they thinking was going to happen if they didn't do that? Okay, so let's start with popular sovereignty. So popular sovereignty is about the people, right? It's who the people want, right? So the people, remember, they're in charge of government. It's not the other way around. So who gives the U.S. government its power? The people do, right? So the definition is the belief that people can and should govern themselves, the people rule. So we've talked about this a lot, that the people are in control of the government and they could fire the government. And how would they do that? We said that the way to fire the government would be to just not vote for them again, right? So not to elect them again. So that's one way. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in class. Then you have republicanism. This is, I voted, those popular stickers that we get when we vote. That is such a proudful moment because you're actually getting involved with your government. You're deciding who you want to be your representative. Remember, in the United States, we have a representative government. Who's going to represent me? Right? I've told you to break down the letters or break down the words. Represent. Who's going to represent me? So while I'm here in class with you guys, I don't have to worry about running the government, right? Because I've elected people to do that for me. And hopefully the people that I've elected will do the jobs that they have promised to do. So the definition is people vote for people to represent their views in government. Federalism. Which government has more power, the state or national? Well, believe this or not, it's actually a shared power, right? It's sharing, like you share with your brother and your sister. We are sharing our government. Because remember, who's in charge? You should be saying the people. So we want to make sure that the states and the government don't have too much government, right? But they want to share the power so they protect the people. The definition is people vote for people to represent their views in government. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today. That's really important. Then you have separation of powers. Think of dividing, right? You are dividing. Look at the tree, right? You have these branches. You have a branch here, you have your executive branch, your legislative branch, judicial branch, if that's what my eyes are seeing, right? But we've talked about how they are categorized in order. We know that the first principle is going to be the legislative branch. Why? Because it's very important, because they have the Senate and the representatives that represent the people. They have just a little bit more power, not much, just a little bit more, because they can veto, they can impeach, they can refuse to choose the judge, the Supreme Justice that the president has elected. So they have just a little bit more power. Then the second article would be, not principle, I apologize, the article. The second article would be the executive branch, right? That would be the president of the United, the United States, who enforces, or another way you could say it is executes the law. And the judicial branch, these are our justices. These are the people that are well knowledge in the Constitution. They make sure that if any laws are passed from either the president or the legislative branch, they want to make sure that those laws are in fact constitutional. Are they going to be good for the people? Okay, so the definition. The federal government is divided into three branches: the legislative, Article 1, the executive, Article 2, and the judicial, Article 3. Each branch of the government has its own responsibilities, and we will discuss that a little further today. Then we have limited government. We have talked about this so much, right? Limited government. Look at this picture. This is our law, right? We want to make sure that it's equal, that the government, regardless of who is in charge, whether it's me, your parents, our principal, the teachers, the people in government, everybody has to follow the law, including you, right? Everyone has to follow the law because we have a limited government. Our government is equal. No one has, the branches can have equal powers, right? They're divided to make sure that one doesn't get more powerful than the other. And according to the US Constitution, the government only has the powers the people give it. Everybody has to follow the same laws, even the members of government. Individual rights. What are personal freedoms and how are they protected? Freedom. We've talked about freedom, right? Freedom of religion. You have these rights because you were born. Remember Locke, that John Locke says we have these natural rights that belong to us. They are our rights because we're born, right? Our higher power, whoever that may be, has given us these rights. These are considered unalienable rights. So the definition is personal liberties, unalienable rights, and privileges that our people are born with and cannot be taken away. Now, unfortunately, we are going to learn about some rights that are taken away from people outside of the United States, but for the most part, we are protected because of the Bill of Rights. Remember, we talked about when the colonies finally broke free from Britain and they had the Articles of Confederation. It was just a horrible constitution. They needed to amend it, right? So they came up with something that was going to protect the people. They didn't want those rights taken away from them, so that's why they added the Bill of Rights. That's right above the U.S. Constitution to protect the people. Checks and balances, that is our final principle. How do the different branches of the U.S. government limit the power of each branch? Well, we know that one can check, right? They want to balance each other out. They check each other's work. They want to make sure that one doesn't become much more powerful than the other. This is what balances it, right? This is what keeps it together. Because if we had one branch that was too powerful over the other two, it wouldn't be an even system. So checks and balances is extremely important because this is how we make sure that limited government is followed through and through. Okay? So we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, my angels, so let's see what we have to do next. All right, the next thing you have to do is you will have, I believe I made you a drag and drop. Let's see. Yes, a drag and drop, your favorite. So you are going to match the principles to the correct image, definition, or quote. Think about the lesson, think about the conversations and discussions that we're having in class today. And of course, always use the PowerPoints to help you. All right, my angels, I will see you in a bit.